All right, we are live. This is Wednesday. It is not 4:30 p.m., our usual time for these office hours, but it is shortly after 5. We are live from Minneapolis and the MMS conference. Everyone, can we get away from the conference? There we go. This is just one of those fantastic weeks. Being able to join into the conference, even though I had some personal things I needed to attend to this week, but it's been fantastic being able to join in the session yesterday with Andrew. And once again, I just want to say a big thank you for the MMS organization being so supportive, and to all the other speakers chiming in, helping out. And I really hope you guys had a great conference, even though it's still a couple of sessions left in the morning for you. But this is office hours. This is where you can ask questions on pretty much anything related to Intune, ConfigMgr, MDT, PowerShell, you name it. We're happy to answer those questions. We usually spend a little time on news and things that have happened throughout the week, but this is office hours, live Q&A, and both Andrew and I, we absolutely love questions. Andrew, would like to say a few words about yourself before we get going?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Johan. And I should say today, I mean, since we've got this whole group of very smart people in the room, this does not have to be just Andrew and Johan asking or answering questions. If anybody, like, this should be an interactive thing. So if anybody has an answer to a question that gets asked or anything, I'll be happy to hand the mic off to you. So my name is Andrew Johnson. I have been in the systems management space for, 18 years now or so. Some of you have already heard this spiel this week. And Johan and I have been doing this now for, two years, I think?
Yeah, coming out 100 plus episodes all in all. So yeah, a little bit.
So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right. My name is Johan Arvidmark. Like Andrew, I been part of the Intune and ConfigMgr community for quite some time now. I've been doing consulting work for the past 30 years in the topic. So that obviously means two things. One, I'm old. Two, I may not have seen everything, but I've seen a lot over the years. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I have a good demo set up here as well. So most of these questions I will be able to showcase and demo as well as they come in. But I'm curious, Andrew, from your end, what's been like the big news from the conference? What are some of the things you picked up that you didn't know before going?
So quite a few graph sessions this week that I've picked up on. For you and I had one, and fortunately Jan, who is in the back, was able to join in your place. We just deleted a couple of letters from your first name and we got Jan. It worked out well. So a common thing that I've been hearing this week, and maybe I'll pose the question back to the room here. Should we still be using client secrets as often as we do when we're connecting a graph? No, we should be using managed identities and certificates. That has been a theme I've heard many times in many different sessions this week. So it's not exactly new, but I'm hearing it more this year than I typically do. So that stood out to me. A lot of Autopilot sessions, a lot of graph sessions. Would anybody like to share a favorite session that they had, or something, just some information that they thought was really interesting in one of their sessions? Yes, sir.
The BlackLotus debacle. I don't know how many are aware of this issue, but we all will be impacted sooner or later. I think the certificate itself that is going to die and be revoked automatically, latest by October next year, but probably sooner we will be experiencing some things. So one of the sessions we had earlier was about that situation, and yeah, it's important. So if you haven't already looked into it, please do so.
Yeah, that's a good one. Absolutely. Funny enough, one of the links that I kind of looked into just before office hours was a repost from Damien. He's Microsoft MVP over in France. And let me bring that up on the screen. I'm gonna figure this one out. Yeah, this one here. I think that was a very timely post. Basically, a best practices topic around using Intune PowerShell and the Graph API. So if you haven't had a chance to see that one, by all means, go up and do the reading of that blog post. It came early April, but last year, but it's been one of those really, really good blog posts too. And I just saw that we reshared that information earlier. And the question regarding BlackLotus, there is a quite remarkably good post by Mr. Helmut, a Microsoft person over, I believe, in Germany. But he published what I consider one of the best information I've seen around the BlackLotus thing. So I figured I should bring it up on stage as well. So basically this one here, slightly clear the vlog around this, but basically giving a little bit of background to the scenarios, how it really been effective, and what happens when you start to do mitigations about it, because those mitigations are in multiple levels. Anything basically from starting to, all right, we do trust in a certificate, and eventually we will revoke it away and tell the devices to don't trust anything but this, or don't trust any other bootloaders. But the moment you put in that mitigation in place, that's when fun things start to happen, because you need to make sure that all your devices are in that state. Otherwise, you'll find that you can no longer boot from old boot media. You cannot boot from Pixie unless you make some modification to the Pixie. And this blog post is just a fantastic, good summary about that. Obviously, you should attend Gary's and Mike's session if you had a chance there. But this, I think, is a really good blog post to read, especially for those that are not in the conference and won't have access to the MMS material. But I know that Gary and Mike had a pretty long slide deck for their sessions. If you didn't have a chance to catch it, recommend at least download the slide deck. And I know someone who happened to have a PowerShell script available again for like the 10th in a row or something like that allow you to download every single slide deck in one go from the conference.
It just makes things so easy. Do you mind bringing that up, Johan?
I'll see if I can find it.
And also, while you're doing that, we normally share links like this during office hours. Where can the audience find those links when we're wrapped up?
That is a very good question.
That's all right. I can answer that one while you're pulling that up on GitHub. So normally later tonight or tomorrow morning, you can find this video on YouTube, and we always post all of the links that we share underneath the YouTube video. So feel free if you want some of this evening. Feel free to take a photo or something if you'd like, but we will get all of this posted.
Yeah. So here is the script from Andrew. As you can see, it's been recently updated here for MMS 2025 or MOA 2025. So single PowerShell script allow you to filter on sessions and topics and whatnot. But you kick it off, you have a long coffee break, and you come back and you have all the sample files, all the scripts, everything in one single folder. Really, really good.
And Johan, would you mind scrolling down a little bit? I did just want to point out to the acknowledgements there, this is not a one-man show on this script. It's been running for, as Johan said, about 10 years, but several contributors to the script over the years. It's been around long enough that PowerShell 7 was released. We've had Sketch itself has changed a lot. PowerShell has changed a lot. And so we've had some people that are much smarter than I am that have also gotten in and adjusted the script. So more great community effort at work.
Community, right? That's the best. All right. Regarding the links that Andrew mentioned, up on our YouTube channel, obviously I'm not going to pick this live event that is running right now, but if I pick, say, the one from last week, this is where you will see in the descriptions here, you will have all the links that we were discussing. That one, for example, this very shiny one, the OpenIntuneBaseline, which I know that I made some updates to recently, but this is a jumpstart kit if you want to get going with Intune and don't really know where to start with all these different configuration policies. We have mentioned this many times throughout our office hours, but this one is one of those amazing community contributions where you have, for example, a decent set of starting policies that are well tested, well vetted by the community. Beautiful naming convention. Makes my eyes tear up when I see this. It's just amazing. But if you just want to have something to start going, just import this in a lab tenant and start to play around. This is amazingly good.
I think James actually had a session on this week. Was anybody able to attend that session? Yeah, pretty great stuff, right?
This is awesome. Yeah. The trick around this, and I learned this the hard way. First of all, read the documentation. I didn't. So I just started to import them as they were into the console, because these days you can import settings catalog settings in the Intune console directly. These baselines are intended to be in tune with the Intune management tool from Michael Carlson, which is a downright great tool. We have showcased this probably 20 times here. But if you at any given point have stuff that you want to either document in Intune or just export, import, compare, this is the tool. It can do pretty much everything there is in an Intune tenant. So even view stuff that you normally cannot see in an Intune tenant, like the content of a platform script that you uploaded. It's right here. You can even edit it here. Beautiful. So if I would take one of my PowerShell scripts that I have here, let me show you that one because it's fun. We can actually have a little competition for it. You still have keychains, Andrew, or do you give them all out?
Still have a couple.
There we go. There we go. Let me see. Devices and Windows to make the list shorter. Scripts, platform scripts. This is a script I'm very proud of, but unfortunately, it's the deployment is not great. I targeted 30 devices. It failed on exactly 30 devices. And if I would go to Intune and take a look at this script and just like, all right, I can't really do anything with it. I can't see the content of it. I don't know why it failed. I would have to either snatch it from a device or start to do some logging on devices to see what's going on. Or I would use this little utility and go to that script and simply view it. If I can select it, I will view it. Because here I have an edit option. And I wonder if you guys can tell me why this particular script failed. Hint, it's in the beginning.
See, oh, yep, a couple of guesses here. Yep.
Yep, indeed.
Exactly.
Yours truly fat-fingered a comment. It's supposed to have a hashtag in the beginning. And at least on my system, I don't have a PowerShell command name KMS space activation space script. I don't think anyone has, but it literally failed. But this makes it so easy. And I can even go ahead and edit this one right here and save it. And now my script is updated. Because that's something I absolutely do not like around platform scripts. I mean, sure, it says that it does KMS activation, but that script could really do anything. I have no idea once it's uploaded. So just one of many use cases with that little utility. But I do see we have a bunch of questions coming in. What do you say, Andrew? Shall we give it going and try to answer some of them?
Yeah, we actually have some coming in on YouTube.
Well, we are live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So right now we have YouTube and LinkedIn questions.
All right. Yeah, let's answer some. And then we take a couple from the room too after that.
Sounds good. All right. This is a question from Stefan over on YouTube. What do you monitor ConfigMgr services with when not using, say, SCOM or similar solutions? Basically, what do you use to monitor ConfigMgr health? For me, it's been, if I don't have or the customer I work with don't have a platform for server management already, it usually comes down to a healthy dose of PowerShell. We have showcased these scripts a couple of times, but for example, in one of my lab environments here, I have a ConfigMgr 2409 environment. Have a couple of distribution points in this one. One of them is in maintenance, the other one is not in maintenance mode, but that's a typical server that I want to make sure is healthy. So we leverage health scripts that we basically copy out and run on each CP, each distribution point. We summarize the result, and then basically have a little report we can check. And this script that collects the data, it's a fairly simple PowerShell script. It collects data points that we found valuable to know about our distribution points, like have we enabled LEDBAT, yes or no? Have they been patched recently? How are we doing on free disk space, both on the system disk and the content library disks? We get a lot of information about branch cache. We are checking event logs for common errors. I want to see how we're doing there. And continue to basically gather data points that makes it easy for me to give at least an idea on the health of all my distribution points. So if I run this script, let's see what I should run the right script. If I run the script here, it will copy it out to all distribution points that are not in maintenance mode. I actually have a filter for that. When running the script, I'm purposely filtering those out. But of course, if you want to get the data, you can just change that filter. But long story short, I will get a little report back here in a little bit, summarized in my results folder. Here. Whenever it's done, I should have a couple I've been running before. Here is one I ran back in early this year. So I can copy that one over for now to a temporary folder, and I can open it up with Excel just so you see an idea on what the report would look like. I actually realized it just finished here, but let me snatch the one that we just created. If I sort by modified, it should be the top one. There we go, May 7. I'll copy that one over. And open them in Excel. Because here's the thing, even if you have 50, 60 distribution points, when you see them in an Excel spreadsheet like this, it's really easy to start to see trends among health. For example, their branch cache service. Is it running? Yes or no? I did not mean to do that. Is the branch cache service running? Yes or no? What's the startup type? how have it been configured? Are we actually keeping the data of it where it's supposed to be on a data drive? What's the current cache size on it? When was it created? And this is important because there are issues that has been fixed in updates that Microsoft released, but if the cache wasn't recreated, the fix doesn't apply. I'm checking the service secret to see that that one is the same on all of them. I'm looking for the event logs, any errors. This is not the good one at all. This information here tells me I have not configured IIS to purge all log files, which is something you should do because by default they are here, and if that's allowed to grow, the server will crash. And on with, more information, as I mentioned, disk space, active cache connections from the connected cache, whatever data point that makes sense to you. So stuff like this we do to keep operational health, to answer that question. I did spend some time with Jordan Bensing. He worked with me over at Trucep, but he's now with Patch My PC. But we put together some operation guidelines for ConfigMgr a while back. So basically stuff that we recommend that you do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and then longer basis. And of course, the idea is to take these actions and put them into a script or your maintenance solution, whatever, so you have that. So yeah, that's what we do to monitor ConfigMgr services. All right.
All right, great tip. Do we have any questions here in the room that anyone would like to ask? Yes, over here. Give me 1 second, Johan.
Yes, sir.
This might be a little bit more of a licensing question, potentially, but it's about Autopatch. So our company is trying to be cost effective, and we do not have the M365 e-bundle. Instead, they're doing EMS E3, Office 365 E3, and then obviously we have the Windows Enterprise SKU license, but not the cloud version. So everyone's on Enterprise. Can we use Autopatch, or are you required to have the Windows 10/11 cloud license that usually would be included in the M365 bundle?
I know there were some recent, just a couple of weeks back, or maybe last week, there were some changes to Windows Autopatch licensing, but that might have been available in education or something like that. Do you remember, Andrew?
Available for education. Yep, business premium and education.
Yeah, that was the changes. I'm not a licensing expert, but this is basically what the documentation says at the moment.
Yeah. I don't know if Autopatch is specifically called out, and I don't know that it's been updated for this latest change, Johan, but do you want to pull up M365 maps at least as a, if we've all had Microsoft licensing questions, right? I don't think was it yesterday's sizzle reel, Christina, talking about how she doesn't understand Microsoft licensing? That's because nobody does.
It's true.
And this website right here, m365maps.com, does help with that a little bit. A lot, I should say. It's a fantastic way of visualizing what's available in all these different licenses, as well as being able to compare them. So I do think, based on that last page, though, I mean, if you would have to have one of those suites or business premium, and then Autopatch will come through as an actual license in one of those suites. And if you are licensed for it, you can go into the tenant administration node of Intune and try to enable it, and it will actually do a license check for you. when you try to enable Autopatch for the first time.
Yeah, there is a graph call you can do. Subscribe SKU something. Let's see if I have a note of it. Just give me a moment. I should be able to find it. Yeah, if you go to Graph Explorer or however you want to run a graph query against your tenant, just making sure that you're actually logged into it. Otherwise, it's going to fail miserably. So if you query for, it's hard to see here, but if you query to subscribe SKUs, you will be able to see everything that you are, well, basically licensed for. So remote help, endpoint privilege management, the Intune suite, I guess this one is. But you can search for things like deployment service, which Autopatch is leveraging together with a bunch of other things in Intune, and basically see that you have it. So I'd start there, I would recommend, or place a very long support case, perhaps.
All right, great question. Do we have some more questions online, Johan?
Yes. Let's see, another question from YouTube. Do anyone keep default Windows 11 24H2 device encryption when provisioning new devices, or do you override those settings with BitLocker configs? And if yes, which ones and why? I see a lot of organizations changing encryption levels, even from the default, even from back in Windows 10, when it was the default of AES 128, and they would want to have something more secure. They will go ahead and change that, even though in some cases that actually means having to decrypt the disk and encrypt it again. A resource we often showcase in our trainings is from Brooks Pepin. He used to be a VMware Workspace ONE expert, but he has now switched over to the other side and works primarily with Intune. But long story short, he has some fantastic BitLocker guidance that he has put together. So these resources here, these posts, even though the Intune screen or layout has changed a little bit, this topic here is super valid. This is just a great starting point if you're interested in managing BitLocker with Intune. And then there are a couple of gotchas that he highlights here that is, even though this is a couple of years old, still very much valid. So I would start there.
All right, great. Any other questions here from in the room? Oh yeah, we got one right down here. 1 second.
Run faster.
So, MDT being translated into, I can see you shaking your head already, Johan, and PowerShell. With you and Niehaus now on board on 2Pint and Deploy R, is MDT PowerShell edition dead?
The short answer is absolutely not. That we are not making any deprecation of that one. But there are scenarios where we won't be able to easily, at least, make changes. For example, to support Windows on ARM, that will require a major rewrite, and I'm not even sure we can get the SAS sequence engine to run in an x64 emulation on an ARM boot image. So we are very unlikely to go forward with anything like that. We still maintain and further develop that solution, even though there are dependencies of MDT, but it's not it's community support behind it. The 2-point solution that Niehaus is developing together with that full team is, of course, a supported platform, and that one is I don't know how many thousands of hours, but there's a lot of development put into that one. So we are not making any changes to PSD at the moment. We're going to keep it around as long as it works. But the MDT itself is, of course, as you guys know, is unfortunately going away. And for those of you running ConfigMgr, you have a bit of work ahead, because October this year, Microsoft says that any ConfigMgr release coming after October can possibly break your sequences if you continue to use that integration. So we're working with quite a number of customers right now in basically migrating over, creating new templates, and migrate over the functionality of MDT that we're using for ConfigMgr. The standalone MDT, Light Touch, it's not that big of a deal because that one doesn't change. There are no dependencies. It's a folder on a file share. It will continue to work equally well tomorrow as it does today. But the ConfigMgr part, no. So Andrew and I, when was that? Was it March? Help me, Andrew.
Sounds right. While you're pulling that up, Keith has a comment as well.
I do have a follow-up question for our questioner here. Is what do you currently use MDT for that you want to see continued on in the future, or what scenario? Because are you using Autopilot? MDT doesn't have any knowledge of Autopilot. Are you using Intune and Configuration Manager? MDT has integration with Configuration Manager, but not Intune. What do you currently use MDT for?
I currently don't, but we're saying goodbye to Config Manager and we're going Intune only. So basically for break fix media, I need something. It could be anything, OSD Cloud, something to break fix with.
8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Come see my presentation with Mike Terrell, because that's exactly a very legitimate question.
Yeah.
That because really MDT was partly designed for the old days, Windows 7. You get a PC with Windows Pro on it, but you want to put Enterprise. There was no way to migrate it. The official guidance from Microsoft was erase the machine, install an operating system from scratch, use MDT to help build that out from scratch. Holy crap, that's a horrible way to do things. You should be able to transform the licensing from Pro to Enterprise and just join it to the domain. Finally, Microsoft got their heads out of their asses and realized that this is a great way to go, and Autopilot is the best way to do that. Why manage these drivers by yourself that do that sort of thing? But you're absolutely right. The concept of what do we do when machines are broken is a question. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you there, Keith. And both of you, it's very valid questions or comments, but let me address the first one here. For those of you that are on ConfigMgr today and want to continue to use it for OSD, we did run a session a while ago, in February actually. It's an hour and a half showcasing what options you have to get away from that integration so you continue to use ConfigMgr OSD. The other question around having a deployment solution available, the only thing that Microsoft offers that is supported currently is ConfigMgr OSD. But as we already discussed, there are community solutions, there are third-party vendors offering their support to solutions that they maintain. And even if an organization is like all in Autopilot, you can still leverage these more traditional imaging solutions like MDT, PSD, ConfigMgr, and others, and just tweak them to, for example, work with an Autopilot scenario. Here I have a sequence I've been using quite a bit, but it's a sequence that does a full Autopilot registration. It deploys a device. It talks to a web service and asks the web service nicely to say, hey, I'm this device, I have this a hardware hash. Can you go and register me now kindly and let me know when you're done so I can continue? And we see a lot of organizations implementing solutions like this. They have some sort of imaging capability, but they tweak them so they can also use that for, more modern scenarios like Windows Autopilot. This is a hill I'm ready to die on. I recommend every single company, no matter how modern you are, how Windows Autopilot you are, keep something available so you can image a device if needed, because you're going to need it at some point. It could be as simple as you guys mentioned, Keith mentioned here, a break fix scenario. You need to fix your device quickly. You can't really send it away to Dell and have it send it back in a timely fashion. Or it could be that you need to do some testing. You'd be surprised. There are still organizations out there who are not even remotely done with their Windows 11 migration or upgrades. They are testing it right now. They need a couple of Windows 10 devices with their image so they can test upgrading to Windows 11. Yeah, so they deploy 10 of them. We have recovery scenarios. I hope you never end up with this, but I spent 15 years with a security company, TrueSec. We had, over the years, hundreds of incidents, organizations getting ransomware attacks. Well, having some basic imaging capability available is just it's something I recommend that you have. It doesn't matter so much which, it just have something. A trend that we see in the industry is organizations moving away from having these super complex ConfigMgr OSD setup with front ends and back ends and databases and a mile-long sequence. Instead, doing something simple. That's what I see. So, all right. Sorry, long rant there, but keep something around.
Great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So do we have another one online?
Let's see here. Are there any scripts to automate Intune device registration automatically without user intervention? I'm assuming that is basically enrollment. Yes, you can. There are multiple ways to do fully automatic enrollment. For organizations that are having still hybrid, you can fairly easily configure the Entra Connect to synchronize objects up to Entra, and you can ask a policy to nicely go ahead and enroll those devices into Intune. You can also leverage bulk enrollment provisioning packages. This is something we frequently use when we either have a gazillion of devices that we need to enroll very, very quickly, because Windows Autopilot is many things. Quick is not one of them. But it is a good solution to enroll devices. So we call it Windows Autopilot Plan B, where we basically, I stole this from Niehaus, but he have an excellent post on how to create bulk provisioning packages. There is a PowerShell module written by Dr. Nestor Cinema. He's now Microsoft these days. But long story short, you can create provisioning packages for enrollment. And if you want, you can just tell a regular sequence or however you deploy devices to stage that package, and that will enroll that device with no questions asked. It's not as fancy as Autopilot with, application blocking and nice UI in the end and whatnot, but it will enroll the device. So there are certainly options available. Out of curiosity, anyone in the MMS audience using any other techniques than basically provisioning through hybrid or bulk provisioning or enrollment packages to do fully automated enrollments?
Doesn't look like it.
All right, beautiful. I hope that answered the question at least.
All right.
Any questions from the room?
Yep, got one right here.
So just a follow-up question on MDT. The way the notes read, it seems like it is safe to continue to upgrade ConfigMan until the fall release next year. And then by that point, it needs to be removed out of there or it may break. Does that read correctly?
That's how I read that post, but what we've been telling customers so far is that plan to move away from it this year so you're done with it. Because releases after October may have that side effect that sequences could cause corrupt or become corrupt. And the way they word it is any release after October. So it could very well be the spring release. I expect there will be a 2603 release of ConfigMgr. Haven't been announced or anything, but just a guess. I can bring up that note. Let's to MDT depression, that's a new one. Deprecation. He has wrote a post. I'm pretty sure he linked to the official one here. Beautiful. Yeah. So if I zoom in here, no longer supported. Well, kind of knew that one already, but planned and support the first release after October. And may lead to TS corruption. I can't technically envision how that would happen, but usually what I've learned over the years that if Microsoft actually writes that something can break, there is a likelihood that it can break. So I recommend to get away from that integration. And that session I shared a link to earlier tells you how to do that. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
We have any more questions online at the moment?
Yes, we do. What do you do and why? I have to rephrase that question a bit. Give me a second.
Unfortunately for our online folks, we have no drink. We have no drink chips.
No,
Yeah,
they
exactly.
don't. That's a bummer. I have coffee here. That's the closest I get. Basically, the question was around best practices around RBAC permissions, scope tags versus admin units or other ways. Role-based access in Intune, I'll leave that to you, Andrew. You know more about that than I do.
So scope tags versus admin units. If you need to put role-based access in place for both Intune and Entra, you will need both. So, Johan, would you mind at least bringing up the Intune Admin Center real quick?
I know, guy. Yeah, that can be done.
All right. And then head over to tenant administration.
Yes, sir.
And then roles, because there are a couple of components to role-based access in Intune. So first you have your roles, your various roles here, plenty of built-in roles, but you can also create your own custom roles. And then your scope tags, off to the left if you want to browse over to scope tags real quick. These, thank you. Scope tags are used to just tag various resources in Intune. That can be devices, that can be configuration profiles, that can be applications. Most resources in Intune can be tagged. Not all of them, but most of them can be. And what you can use scope tags to do is basically define what sets of resources users or administrators can actually see or perform some action against, depending on the rights or the permissions that you provide them. And so the way that we configure that we can actually set these scope tags. We can assign these scope tags to a group of devices so that devices can be tagged. So for example, if I am just dealing with devices in the marketing department, we could tag all of those devices with the marketing scope tag. And then if I'm assigned a specific role, I would only see marketing devices, which would leave sales devices, IT, HR, and everything completely out of my view. I don't have permissions to those because I don't have that scope tag assigned. So we can assign these to computers as well. And then Johan, if you pop back over to our roles, and then we can click on any role probably.
All right, I'm clicking any role.
Perfect. And then we can go to assignments. So the roles themselves, would you mind clicking on assign, please?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty impressed with myself, honestly. I've talked through this once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
Normally you don't hear me say that. So we go ahead, and Johan provided a name here. I do want to point out that when you set up a name right here, that's just for the role assignment itself. You're typically not really going to do anything with this. This doesn't have anything to do with the role or the scope tags or anything. It's just the role assignment. And once you give it a name, if you go to the next tab there, then we set up a group of users that we want to be able to view information or perform some action. So we're actually assigning this role to a group of users. So
This
great
is
right there.
This is a group with users.
Yep. So in this case, Johan's just got a group called Field Sales Reviewers. And then if we go to the next page, this is where we actually set the scope group, which is the group of devices that we assigned the scope to. So admin groups, that's your users. Those are your administrators that need to perform some action. Scope groups, these are going to be your devices that you can actually see and perform some action against or view information about. And then the third tab are the scope tags that you'll be assigned to. So basically you've got the group of admins, the group of devices, and the label itself. And with those three things, you bring together all of the role-based access on the Intune side of things.
All right, brilliant.
And then on the Entra side of things, I'm not sure that we can actually walk through this full thing, but if we go over to the Entra Admin Center,
Give me a moment.
this is a lot different than just looking at my normal monitor every week. All right, and then if you could click Show More off to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Identity governance, is it under there? We want to find admin units. Anybody remember what section admin units is under? Might be under... Oh, you can also probably just search for it, Johan, at the top. Yep, administrative units. Roles and admins, perfect. Oh, look, you do have one there. So if you click on that one that you have created there, what we can do with an admin unit is just a logical grouping of objects in Entra. So we can group together users, we can group together groups, or we can group together devices. And then we can assign Entra permissions. The reason that I say we have to have role-based access in place for both Entra and Intune is that things like the BitLocker recovery key or the lapse password, if you are escrowing those to Entra, they're stored in the Entra computer object, not the Intune computer object. So we have to provide some level of access to Entra as well. So if we were, for example, to add some devices in here into this admin unit, we could add those devices in and then assign the cloud device administrator role here, for example. And that is going to allow our admins to be able to perform some action against those Entra device objects. So we can actually recover a BitLocker recovery key. We can recover a lapsed password, or we can disable and delete the object if we need to do that. So those two components together kind of give you the full picture of role-based access between the two systems. It's not entirely dissimilar to how we do things in ConfigMgr and Active Directory today. Something that really helped me understand this when I was first working through admin units was I just started to think of this as like an OU. I've worked with OUs for a long time, and it's not exactly the same concept, but in a way it is. It's just a logical grouping of these objects. And then once I kind of understood that, then it made things a little bit easier, and I was able to draw that parallel between the two systems.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, great question. Oh, yep, we got a question here in the room.
All right.
So related follow-up to that. So I'm in education, and we are just starting to look at going cloud native. In ConfigMgr, I've done role-based access based on computer names to separate everything out, and multiple times in multiple sessions, I've heard computer names don't matter going cloud native. So thinking ahead to how do I then delegate access to specific devices coming out of Autopilot, like what methods are there to do that?
That is a great question. If you don't know, I'm also in higher ed. So anytime these days I hear that name does not matter, I reject that notion, at least at this point in time. Naming, while challenging, especially if you're trying to get everybody to agree to a naming convention across your entire organization, I've found is, in my opinion, the easiest way to group things together in Entra. Now, when you are going cloud native, the naming can get a little bit more complicated. If you're using Autopilot, you have a couple of basic naming options in the deployment profile, so you can go that route. But sometimes you may just need to rename your device after the fact. Renaming a cloud native device, we talked a little bit in with Michael Niehaus on Monday in our Autopilot session. Renaming a cloud native device is pretty straightforward, as long as you're not dealing with device certificates. So these days, my answer is still name your devices however you'd like them to be grouped. So if you have, for example, I'll just use departments again. If we wanted a specific department to, let's say the sales department is SAL, prepended with SAL dash whatever, we can write dynamic device queries pretty easily to handle that. And those dynamic device queries will work both for Entra groups as well as the admin units that we were talking about. I'm starting to see things around like custom security attributes and things like that, but and I think there's a lot of useful stuff that you can do there, but then you're starting to complicate things a little bit more. I shouldn't say complicate, but make them a little bit more complex. You're going to have to build some more automation around that. So
yeah, and I mean for Intune groups, you do have some additional options there as well, where you can group machines into things like a purchase order that have to match on the device. There is another object called, let's see, I'll bring up that group again. The correlation ID, that is part of the profile. That one you can group devices within. So there are other options available to group things together. But I mean, naming goes a long way. That's why when we do, I showed you that sequence earlier when we did Autopilot registration as part of our imaging. We have a script on the server side that runs that, and part of that script is that we actually do assignment of the device. We are actually setting the computer name to what, in this case, what MDT happens to be setting, or PSD happen to be set, but whatever you want, because the Autopilot naming templates are very, very limited. But through scripts and graph, you can name them whatever. I tend to like it when I enroll them, but there's nothing that prevents you to do that rename after the fact. So yeah, just different options.
Right. So I had a question. So with tenant attach and co-management, there's a way that you can tenant attach and sync server devices to Intune. And with co-management, you can do some pretty interesting stuff. You can maybe run scripts against servers. So with scope tags, I'm wondering, since servers aren't natively managed in Intune, will scope tags actually take effect on a server so I can like filter them out?
So servers in Intune are never enrolled per se in Intune. I don't
Do you
know.
In one of your tenants, you have an object, at least a tenant attached, maybe a distribution point or something like that you have available in Intune.
I may have.
I've seen your tenant too many times.
Is that so? All right, here is but this is a command. This is a tenant attached object. Yes, here.
And can we actually see the properties of that?
You can try it, but no true properties. No.
Yeah. So I think that will answer the question. Since it's not enrolled, we won't have the ability to use those scope tags. Because you would actually see, like, Johan, would you mind going over to just a regular Intune device object, Intune enrolled?
Yes, sir. I will even pick a compliant one for you. How about that?
Perfect. And then if we go to the properties section there, that's where you're going to see your scope tags typically. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyone with the default tag is running if they're connected.
Yeah, so I don't know that they would, maybe. So when you're doing, when you have a tenant attach ConfigMgr site, that is by default just going to follow the permissions that you have in ConfigMgr. So if I only have permissions in Intune and I log into the tenant, and let's say even if I'm just an Intune admin or something along those lines, I'm not necessarily going to see all of those tenant attached devices.
I mean, if I click this one here and try to do something creative, like running a CM pivot query or whatever I want to do against this server, even though I am a global admin in Intune, by default, this is going to downright fail.
Yep.
If I pick, let's see what I have here. I can borrow. Usually keep a collection around with good queries to run disk space. How about disk space? So if I run this, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail fairly quickly. And it basically says, make sure you have enough permissions in ConfigMgr. And I don't sync I don't sync admin accounts over. I have some lesser admin accounts I sync over, like in my ConfigMgr environment here, I have a user named, where are we here? On-prem Johan. Here. This is an account that I do sync through Entra Connect. And I'm giving that account the CM Pivot admin security role in ConfigMgr. That's the key. It's a synced account, and it has permissions in ConfigMgr. So if I go into the same tenant, but this time I will be logged in as on-prem Johan rather than a global admin, and wait patiently. So I'm logged in as on-prem Johan. You see that up here. And if I go to the same device, and try to run the same query, it should not fail. My personal best is the result within 20 seconds. My average is usually around 30. So we can see what we're doing here. It's been running for 6-7 seconds now.
While we're waiting for that, Johan, I think we have a follow-up. Did you have something else you want to add?
Yeah, just to that. So we don't have admin roles in Intune from on-prem. We don't allow that. So our accounts are all cloud-based accounts. And so what we did is in Mecum, we turned off the RBAC role from Mecum to be honored. And then in Intune, we configured it so it's Intune managed for RBAC.
Okay.
Okay, so at that point, we have anyone that has Intune roles permissions to run an action for co-management, they can do something. So that's what I was worried about the servers.
Yeah, there is an option to turn off, but in this case, I have in the default behavior where the user needs to have ConfigMgr access, because it's technically Intune telling ConfigMgr to tell its agent to do some work. And as you can see here, I got a result within like 25 seconds, which is pretty dang good. The only requirement is obviously that particular server that you work with, it better be online. Otherwise, there will be no reply. So no, that was a good question. Great question.
Got another question here in the room. Couple. I'll come to you first. Then I'll come back.
Hello. I took the slice and dice Intune troubleshooting session this morning, which was fantastic, by the way. There was so much information in it. They basically talked all the way up to the 45-minute mark. So you talked about that we can use scripts to enroll devices in Intune. And this in the session I took this morning, we discussed Entra ID tokens that are used to link devices to Intune. If you are using a script to enroll devices directly to Intune, how does it impact that Entra ID URL?
Oh. So when I said script earlier, I used script to either generate an enrollment package or have, in this case, my deployment solution stage that enrollment package. So the part that actually does the enrollment is the provisioning package itself. It would be the same thing as I would bring up a machine in basically out-of-box experience and double-click and say yes to install a provisioning package and have it. That's what that scripting is for. I don't know about that token question. Anyone in the room happen to have a great answer?
It's funny because I probably would have pointed back to one of Rudy's blogs, but did you tell me that Rudy was the one that put on that? Yeah, Rudy was one of the presenters. Yeah.
It's dangerous to ask Rudy questions because he will open a debugger and start to basically...
Yeah. No, so in the bulk enrollment token, do you have one available, Johan?
None that is not expired, no.
Okay. So there has to be something identifying in that bulk enrollment token that you're using to actually point it back to the tenant. But without actually taking a look at it, I'm not sure if it's actually in that token or not. The URL that you're referring to. Should run out the door and find Rudy.
Exactly.
Well,
No, I'm so sorry. I don't know.
Well, that's the good thing about being here. We still have 24 hours. We
Oh,
can
yeah.
try to track him down.
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. So a question over here.
Johan, I know you're the delivery optimization king, so I want to be able to ask you this question. I'm trying to understand order of operation here. So if your DO mode is LAN or group, regardless if you've used DHCP option, I think it's 67 to push out that GUID or not, my understanding is that the first thing a device is going to do when it needs content is do, and I know it's not a broadcast, I forget the exact protocol name, but like a broadcast to the local subnet looking for content. And if it can't find it, then it talks to the DO service to find out if it can talk to somebody outside of that subnet that may be within that group. So just trying to understand that order of operations without a connected cache in the mix here.
So the lovely answer is it depends on your settings. If you have a distributed network like this, when you have like multiple branch offices, multiple networks, you can very well set up DO so that a client in every location will always ask Microsoft every time it needs to download something. And this was the default behavior since Windows 10 days when this technology was implemented. A fun fact: it was actually a company that Microsoft acquired back in 2013. It's called Pandu Networks, and that team came over to Microsoft and became delivery optimization. And some of those team members are still there, which is pretty cool. But in Windows 11, there is a policy you can configure. It's called local discovery. The technology behind it, it's DNSSD, which is the same stuff as Apple has in their, printing, Bonjour, whatever stuff Apple does. It's the same concept where you have a device basically asking around locally for friends that have the content. This you can enable in Windows 10 too, at least in Windows 11, Windows 10 22 H2, but you can only do it through a registry key. But in Windows 11, it has a beautiful side effect with it. Because normally, the way the DE was developed early days is that, say, a client downloading 10 files. So that basically the client has downloaded 10 files. This is supposed to be 10 something files in its cache. It would say like, well, today I feel like I'm going to share this one, this one, this one, and this one. So when another client needed to get the content, it would able to get 4 files, or the other way, I guess, 4 files from a friend. The other 6, it would have to go and grab from Microsoft, or from another friend, hoping that that friend has it. With Windows 11, when you enable DNSD, every file that is downloaded is now shared. That's how it should be, in my opinion. That's how branch cache works. But when DNSSD is enabled, then the client will broadcast locally. You can also restrict DO further into just look at the subnet for the regular concept. But no matter the download mode, if you have 1 or 2, you can still use group IDs to further filter. Like in this setup here, it would not be particularly wise to put these locations with the same group ID. Because now you would tell the clients to basically, you can peer across WAN links, across 15,000 clients, across 500 subnets, and you will basically destroy that network. And that I know companies that have been very successful with doing that. The trick is to group them together like this. Clients that are well connected to each other talk to each other. You can use peer restrictions to make sure that doesn't happen. You can use group ID to further filter even within that. So it's a lovely, it depends. I hope that answered the question.
Great question. Do we have any others online at the moment, Johan? I want to make sure we get a couple if there are some.
All right, let's see. It's a question from Matthew, which actually I believe is in the MMS audience.
Yep.
Okay, the question is around doing imaging through Pixie, typing in the password, and when the machine starts to find policies, it cannot find policies. That can basically mean a couple of things. The most common reason is that you have, in ConfigMgr, you have deployments to unknown computers collections. Like this sequence here, for example. I have a lot of them. This one is deployed to all unknown computers. So that collection right there. So this is going to work once to deploy a device. But after I deploy a device, it becomes known. So if I want to redeploy it again, like I have a VM I'm doing testing with or whatever, I have to delete it to make it unknown. It could also be that you have required Pixie deployments. So you have sequences deployed to not unknown computers. It's a bad thing to have required deployments to that one, but you have a custom collection to which you have required deployments. And you do deployment once there. Before you can deploy that again, you have to clear that Pixie flag from them. And you can either do that, but just right-click the device or collections and say, hey, clear the Pixie flag. Or I think I have an example here. I was using let's search for Pixie. How many Pixie scripts can I have? Clear Pixie flags. It's a script that basically has a function in it, but it tries to figure out all devices that happen to have a last Pixie advertisement, and then there is another one that actually just goes ahead and clears it. And it could be simple that the device times out. So either all unknown, the deployment is down to that one, but the device is now known, so there will be no policies. It could be that you have a required deployment and you forgot to clear the Pixie advertisement flag in between, or the script that the machine times out. There is a policy you can set in the boot image itself. I have an old example here. Good old VB script even. These are the variables. They have to be set through a pre-start command because you cannot set them through an unattended file. But you can ask the client to try a few more times with an interval in between to look for policies. So if you have networks with really, really high latency or just poor networks, you can tell the client to, check a few more times for policies. So I would start there.
I just wanted to point out that you should also make sure that you've registered any shared MAC address, like dongles that you're using for imaging.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Once they're registered that first time, they won't be an unknown computer again unless you delete that computer object. So make sure you register those MAC addresses that are shared.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go to your site settings, the hierarchy, let me see here. In this tab here on the hierarchy settings, this is where you can exclude say, dongles from this. And you can do this in PowerShell too. There's a PowerShell command to do this. I mean, if you have 3 like I have, it's no big deal adding them into the GUI here. But if you have 300, less fun. But it's a good comment. Thank you.
All right. Another question over here.
So I haven't seen anybody from the Windows update team here. I don't know if they're hiding, but there's one. Okay. So my two-part question. One is the delivery, the deployment service is still quite the black box. Before it used to be like 24 to 40 hours before you were registered in that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have they sped it up? What is the time to be expected to be registered into it? And then my other question is, I don't know if there's a bug or how the expected way this works, but when we were upgrading the Windows 11, we put a required via Intune, Windows Update for Business, required installation, but did like a very long, like 1 month granular, like it was like adding systems in like automatically, you know. And when we did that, the available opt-in advertisement stopped functioning suddenly. So we had expected that people could opt in as they want, but over a period of months that they would all be, forcefully, upgraded, and that option disappeared immediately as soon as we put the required on.
Well, let's start with the first one. I still believe the official interval or timing is 48 hours, but at least I haven't heard anything else. But what we've seen lately is actually devices being enrolled more quickly than that. We did a training just a couple of months back with this, where each student get their own, Intune lab tenant for 10 days. And they were able to basically do the policies on day 1, and they were enrolled on day 2, which is way faster than anything I've seen before. So I think Microsoft has done something to speed up that enrollment. Brian Dam has a beautiful script that actually allows you to check the enrollment status. I just forget where he put that script. That is a good question. Do you happen to remember, Andrew?
No, I can't remember if it was either on the Patch My PC blog or GitHub. Maybe both.
If I can find it real quick here.
Okay.
Let me check one of my devices over here. I'd like to say we showcased it at one point.
Definitely. See if I can find it real quick too.
First time I ran it, I remember I thought it was broken because it installed the MS Microsoft Graph module in the background, and that took a little bit, to say the least. Let's see. Could it be this one? No, I think that might be something else. No, it is not that script. I think this is a custom one.
I'm sure we can, if we can't find it right now, I'm sure we can grab it and post it to the links for this evening.
Yeah, I'm not very lucky finding that script at the moment. I wonder if you shared it in one of the office hours.
I'm almost positive we did. I just can't remember the name of the script.
Yeah, we may have to come back to that one. I don't find it.
Yeah, because I was thinking, per the usual, when we were running this, Johan, we're already at about 8 minutes left.
Oh,
Time flies.
Yes. All right. Let me find out at another point.
Yeah, so we'll find that and post that, but it's basically a script that helps kind of gather some more information about the deployment service on the client, if I remember correctly, Johan.
Yes, sir. You just specify a name of the device and it looks it up.
We'll get that posted. And maybe, Johan, if you could let me know when the links get posted, I can send a message out to all of the attendees to let them know that it's up and send the link out to the live stream.
I'll see what I can do.
All right, perfect. We have a deal. All right, any other questions in the room? I think everybody's brain's hurting after 3 days. I know mine is. So I had a great question. I'll ask one, Johan, because I'd like to get your take on it. After our application, with Intune, mastering app deployment and management in Intune session yesterday, you and I talked a little bit about application content library. Basically how with Intune, we have to build out our own content library, similar to how we would with source files in ConfigMgr. I got a question that, let's say you build out that library, and you package all of your applications, you put them up in Intune. So they've been prepped with the content prep tool. You have encrypted content, and that's been uploaded to Intune. And then you lose your content library. Somebody leaves, their content library was on their local device, or for whatever reason you lose your content library. What options, if any, do we have?
But there are some solutions available to actually download the packages and extract the content as long as we can get to those, basically decrypt the content of it. I know Oliver posted a few things about that and Damien as well.
That was my best recommendation, was Oliver's script on decrypting.
Yeah. I think that there have been some changes recently, so that script may have to be updated. But yeah, another good preventive operation could be, of course, to actually have a backup. That is that one option also of your source library. But if you lost it, you lost it.
So my question is about OneDrive. I've heard a lot of interesting things at this conference about OneDrive, which you think would be simple. But so through Autopilot, my understanding now was that OneDrive comes down naturally from Microsoft. You don't need to do anything, and it does run with the all users switch and gets installed in the program files folder. This is what we are noticing. But when I talk to Michael Niehaus, he says, no, it's not working like that. It must be coming from somewhere else. It's definitely still coming down as a user. He says when it updates via scheduled task, then it may install with the all users switch. Then other people are saying that they're running scripts that they're using as blocking ESPs to force OneDrive to update, but are they forcing OneDrive, the latest version, to install with the all user switch? Just trying to find out what is the latest recommendations around the OneDrive installation during Autopilot.
That I do not know.
Nobody
Usually,
knows.
I mean, I've known Niehaus for 20 some years now. His nickname when he was with Microsoft was internally was Knowledge House. He seems to know just everything. I can't remember him ever being wrong about anything. So usually when he says something, he says jump, I'll jump. It's
Yeah.
I don't know.
I did notice, so I was in, he and Rudy had a second showing of a hacking Autopilot session just before this that I happened to join for a little while, and tangentially related. So Michael has an Autopilot branding script out there on GitHub, and one of the options as part of that branding script is to download and install the machine-wide OneDrive client. So I don't know that actually answers your question. I don't think it does, but to Johan's point, I'm sure there's a reason that he has that in that branding script.
Yeah, it was just an update just before MMS here, or when MMS started, regarding this branding package. So maybe look into that one and see if something stands out. But I don't have a great set of information, I'm afraid.
It's in the cloud. It just works, right?
It's in the cloud, just works.
Oh, got a question right here. This might be, what do you think, Johan? One more?
Well,
this isn't a
absolutely.
question, but just a continuation on your question as far as how we handle it. And I don't know the full process because I only do parts of it, but we do Autopilot, and during the process we install the user-based version of OneDrive. We do it through a script, so we don't install the machine-wide. We go and force a user-based install for OneDrive. So that might be a route you might want to investigate as far as if you want to implement that. So that's one way of doing it. We don't want the machine-wide. We do is it about personal or business? Yeah, sorry, I'm a little. I'm out of it after 3 days of this. It's been a lot, but yeah, we script it and we put on a user install for OneDrive. So that might be something you want to look into.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. What do you think, sir?
Yes, indeed. It is time to say thank you so much. Thank you for everyone at the MMS conference. Thank you for everyone joining online, asking questions. We got more questions that we were able to deal with in under an hour and 45 minutes, but thank you so much. I appreciate this. This is true happiness. Enjoy the conference, everyone, and take care out there. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.